It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the 5 films of March 31st, 2006. Now, on today's show, we have a wide variety of various movies. We have movies that, sequels that people were looking forward to. We have a coming-of-age story. We have a horror movie, which would be directed by a guy who would eventually go on to direct the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. We have a sequel nobody was asking for, but they made it anyway. And we have the introduction to a director known as Rian Johnson. But we'll get to those movies as we move along here. Let's, of course, begin with the biggest new release of the weekend, which was, of course, Ice Age: The Meltdown. Trailer gives you kind of an idea of what the story for this movie is. You have the Herd once again with Ray Romano, John Leguizamo, and Dennis Leary. They're heading away from this area where it's going to flood, and the flood is supposed to destroy the end of the world pretty much. And during their adventure, Manny finds love in another mammoth played by Queen Latifah, who thinks she's a possum because she hangs around with these other possums who found her when she was abandoned, and so she eventually she thinks that she's a possum the whole time. And the two possums in this movie are played by Sean William Scott and Josh Peck. And well, this one doesn't have certainly a lot of the same elements that made the first Ice Age a good movie. It really does work mostly because I think the comedy is a lot better. You can definitely tell that the animation overall got a much bigger upgrade, especially considering after what the Blue Sky Studios had done with robots. The visuals are still impressive to look at. There is much more of an epic storyline here, and they make for a really good and engaging sequel where you have a lot of really fun new characters in the fold here, especially with Queen Latifah and Sean William Scott and Josh Peck as the possums. Scrat is always going to be very fun overall. It's not quite as good as the original film, but I still really enjoyed it a lot. And if I'm being quite honest with you, I saw this movie in theaters multiple times, not because of the movie itself, but because this was playing in front of Ice Age: The Meltdown. Yeah, I literally went to go see this movie 3 times just to see the Simpsons movie trailer on the big screen, just to know that this is actually happening now. They've been talking about doing a Simpsons movie for years, but that trailer, seeing it up on the big screen, made it worth it every single time I went to that movie, because I went to see a good movie, but it was worth it just to see that trailer. Kind of like how the only reason I went to see Ice Age Continental Drift was to see the Maggie Simpson show, which is easily the best thing about that movie, because the Ice Age Continental Drift is not a good movie by any means necessary. But again, we will save the Simpsons talk for when the Simpsons movie comes out the next summer. But overall, this is still a good movie, not a great one, but I still like it. Ice Age: The Meltdown. So with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is ATL. ATL, of course, standing for Atlanta, Georgia, which is where this movie takes place in. It's a coming-of-age drama where you have a man by the name of Rashad, played by T.I. in this movie, in his film debut, and his friends in his final year of high school on the verge of adulthood. And you also have Antoine Andre Patton, also known as Big Boy, of the group Outkast, Evan Ross, Jackie Long, Jason Weaver, Lauren London, Nicolette Williamson, Keith David, yeah, this is a coming-of-age story, very similar to something like Roll Bounce in general, but I'll be honest with you, this is one I never really got around to seeing. I mean, I don't know if it was good or not, but it did get decent reviews overall, and it was considered a hit overall. It did only had a small budget of $7 million and made 3 times that, but it did go on to have this cult following among it. And this director, Chris Robinson, has directed a number of different music videos. The most recent thing he directed was the LeBron James movie Shooting Stars, which came out on Peacock last year. But other than that, though, there's really not much more I can say about the film because I haven't seen it. I knew it was out at the time. I just really had no keen interest in seeing it per se, but I've heard some good things about it overall. So it might be one I might check out one day, but I'm really not in any hurry, in any way, shape, or form, to actually give it a shot, honestly. But maybe one day I'll get to see it. But yeah, not much more to say about that one. That's ATL. So let's go ahead and get back to a movie that I have seen, and that is James Gunn's Slither. This is the type of movie that I think something like Eight-Legged Freaks was supposed to be like, but this movie I think does it a whole lot better, mostly because of what James Gunn brings to the table. And the trailer again once again gives you an indication of what the movie's about. You have a small town in South Carolina that becomes invaded by a malevolent alien parasite, and this is a story we've seen done to death so many times in horror movies. This is basically kind of the equivalent to The Blob in a way, but it knows that, and it knows how unique and how gritty it has to be to really stand out in general here. And I think this movie works incredibly well. This shows you what James Gunn is capable of doing as a filmmaker as a whole, and what he would later bring to the table with some of his movies he would make later on down the road, like Super, and of course the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and the Suicide Squad. But this movie just works, man. This is a fun, silly, over-the-top movie with a strong cast that includes Nathan Fillion, Elizabeth Banks, Jenna Fisher, Michael Rooker. Just a phenomenal cast. Some really good effects for the small budget that the movie had in general. I mean, it's a B movie in the best possible way. It reminds me so much of like Tremors in a way. Like it knows it's a low-budget movie. It knows how silly it is. It knows how ridiculous it is. But are you having a good time with it? Then we've completed our mission. We know exactly what we need to do to entertain you, and this film does that and more. Not much more to really say about this one either, man. This is a really fun movie, man. I enjoy this one a lot. It does give you an idea of what James Gunn as a filmmaker has the potential to do down the road, proving that the Scooby-Doo movies were essentially a fluke to his true talents overall. But this is a fantastic movie. I can't recommend it enough. Slither, must-watch film. Not so much our next movie, which I've made this kind of a running joke on Movie Stop as that one movie that will never leave Barnes & Noble whatsoever, because who in their right mind would want to watch Basic Instinct 2 multiple times on physical media? Because after I've seen it, it's hard to watch even the first time around. Oh my god, we get it! You like to fuck a lot! That's literally what the whole trailer is, and that's what the whole movie is. Like, the original Basic Instinct is still the best erotic thriller of all time because it has a good, engaging mystery to it. It has an engaging concept to it. This is an example of what happens when you take one of the few bright spots in a really bad genre and completely just ruin it for the namesake. Because, let me tell you something. This movie is absolutely horrible. I've never talked about this movie in full. It's been a running gag, like I said, on Movie Stop. Every time I go up to Barnes & Noble and I see it in the store, and I would say, oh, nobody's going to buy it. Well, I'm going to tell you why nobody's going to buy it, because the movie is absolute garbage. You have a novelist and suspected serial killer Catherine Trammell, once again played by Sharon Stone, who's once again in trouble with the authorities, this time in London. Now, Scotland Yard appoints psychiatrist Dr. Michael Glass, played by David Morrissey, to evaluate her. As with SFPD detective Nick Curran in the first film, Dr. Glass becomes a victim of Trammell's psychological manipulation. And as you see in the rest of the trailer there, her manipulation is, like I said before, she wants to fuck a lot. I mean, that's literally the whole movie. And it's not even hiding it this time around. Like, that scene where she's slinking down in the chair in front of her with the legs crossed to the side. It's just like, there's a whole lot of that in the movie, just throwing it in your face. Have you gotten the point yet? Have you gotten the point yet? Do you know what the twist is going to be? Like, is this annoying you right now? Because let me tell you something. That's the whole movie. That's the entire movie. And the worst part about it is, the mystery in here is absolutely awful. Like, you don't even need to know where this movie's going to go to know exactly where you think it's going to go. If you think you have an idea of what's going to happen, it happens in the movie, and it's not done well at all. This is a movie that Sharon Stone made because this is 2006. Everyone's kind of tired of her. She made one bad movie after another after 1995, and then like her career just completely fell off the radar. After that one time she was nominated for an Oscar for Casino, that career took a huge nosedive almost immediately because she just started picking one bad movie after another, and this was a last-ditch effort to save whatever was left of her career at the time. And the movie that we have here is one of the most blandest, most uninspiring, most uncomfortable, most unnerving movies of erotic thrillers you will ever see. There is nothing sexy about this movie. There's nothing engaging about this movie whatsoever. This movie was made specifically because of money. Because the first film was such a classic movie in 1992, nonetheless. Like, if you wanted to make this movie in, I don't know, 94, 95, just a couple years after the original film, it probably would have worked better back then, but this is 2006. This is 14 years after the genre that this movie started fell off a crater because everyone was doing the exact same thing that Basic Instinct was doing. Hell, Sharon Stone was even in some of these knockoff Basic Instinct movies, like Sliver, the Sylvester Stallone one, The Specialist. There's another one too I'm thinking of. But those were the two big ones, Sliver and the Special. I can't think of the third one, but yeah, this movie is bad. This is a horrible, horrible movie that has no reason to exist except because of the name, Basic Instinct. Now, to this movie's credit, the only thing that this movie did that was salvageable and made it worth it was the fact that this was my first time ever seeing Basic Instinct. I wanted to see and it was because I had it it came in a 2-pack when I saw Basic Instinct 2 in there. It's just like, oh, Basic Instinct is in there, the original. I've heard it's a great movie. Might as well go check it out. And yeah, the original Basic Instinct is still pretty awesome. The sequel is absolutely horrible, but this is up there with some of the worst sequels ever made. And now you know why I always say that Blu-ray at Barnes & Noble will never ever go away, no matter how hard you try to push it out there, no matter how much it is to buy. Nobody is going to buy Basic Instinct 2. You'd be better off finding any other bad movie in that movie section, and Basic Instinct 2 will be there. Even if Barnes & Noble one day decides to get rid of all physical media, that one copy of Basic Instinct 2 will be there for the remainder of that time the store's open, because nobody is going to buy it. Ever. So yeah, do I need to say more about this movie? Basic Instinct 2 fucking sucks. Plain and simple. So, yeah, we've talked about a really bad movie. Let's end the show on a much more positive note. Let me introduce you to the introduction of Rian Johnson with his neo-noir thriller that is Brick. And thus begins the career of one of the few directors who has never made a bad movie. Suck it, Star Wars fans. Last Jedi, an awesome movie. But we'll save that for another day. But this is Brick. And the film centers around a hard-boiled detective story set in a California suburb. Most of the main characters are high school students. The film draws heavily in plot, characterization, and dialogue from hard-boiled classics, especially those by Dashiell Hammett. The title refers to a block of heroin compromised roughly to the size and shape of a brick. And you have a cast that includes Joseph Gordon-Levitt, one of his early film roles after leaving Third Rock from the Sun, Megan Good, Emily DeRaven from Lost, Richard Roundtree, Lucas Haas. A lot of talent overall in this film, and just a prime example of what Rian Johnson brings to the table as a director as a whole. This is a really good movie. This is a film that just shows you what this guy is capable of, and what we'll eventually see from him down the road with the movies that he'll have afterwards. But this is a film that is such a really cool, stylistic, neo-noir mystery thriller. This is the movie that Basic Instinct 2 wishes it could have been, because it's an engaging mystery, the thrilling aspects are there, the chilled and tension factors are in the film, and you really have no idea where the story is going to end up going overall. This feels like a modern version of classic mystery stories, detective stories, like not just Dashiell Hammett, but also stuff like Sam Spade. Like, this is like a Sam Spade or Mickey Spillane's Mike Hammer story told in a modern setting. Like, I think that's really what makes this movie so unique and so cool at the same time. Just a phenomenal, phenomenal film. I can't recommend this one enough. If you love some of Rian Johnson's other works, like Knives Out or Glass Onion, or even Star Wars The Last Jedi, like, this is the movie you have to see. This is the movie that started it all, and rightfully so, because this shows a guy that, like I said, has never made a bad movie before, and this is definitely one of the reasons why he struck out right out of the gate, because he creates such an engaging mystery thriller in this that just works so well. What more can I say, man? Brick is a fantastic film, a must-watch film. Can't recommend it enough. And so, with all that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. We'll jump into April on the next episode by taking a look at Rob Schneider, John Heder, David Spade in the Adam Sandler-produced comedy The Benchwarmers, Antonio Banderas starring in the dance film Take the Lead, Josh Hartnett leading an ensemble cast, and Paul McGuigan's Lucky Number 11, Monique starring in her first movie leading role after leaving the Parkers, Fat Girls, and also the ensemble Nicole Hofstner film Friends with Money. So we'll take a look at those 5 movies all on the next episode. That'll be coming up on the next time we meet, which will be tomorrow. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button, because we post videos here every day, and then you can get updates on when those videos come out. Now, with all that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.